Hello, Gareth here, and this video is on outdoor watercolor painting, and this is part 4 about where to paint outdoors. So let's begin. So it's not as difficult as you think to find good places to paint. So the very first place you should look is locally. So in my local neighborhood, I found this beautiful temple gate, and luckily I made a really nice painting of it. And I found that gate just by cycling around my local area. Maybe it was when I took my daughter to kindergarten as well. I probably often saw that, and on one morning it looked really beautiful, so I quickly got my cell phone, took a photo, and then from the photo I did a painting. But with that one, I think I actually painted it outdoors. So that one was even done outside. So that was very good. But also, maybe you haven't got beautiful temple, but maybe there is a church or some old building that's very beautiful that you could turn into a nice painting. So it's important to look out for those kind of scenes. And the other thing is, the next thing is, even ordinary buildings can look beautiful. So the next picture you're going to see is also a local place. It's about 400 or 500 meters away, and it's very ordinary scene, but because of the arrangement of the buildings, the shapes, it looks very interesting, and I hope you agree it's a nice painting, but all the objects in that are very ordinary, and so you can make a nice painting from ordinary shapes, ordinary places. So don't be put off if there isn't some beautiful building near you. Ordinary buildings can also look very nice depending on the angle and the lighting. That's what you have to think about. So yeah, the next thing is another quite ordinary scene that you're going to see soon. I saw this place when I went to my daughter's kindergarten. So it was next to the kindergarten, and it was just basically like a garage with some wild grass wasteland next to the garage. So basically the grass, it was just wasteland, that's all it was. So but with the lighting, and just as I looked at that scene, I realized it just looked quite beautiful, and so I had a go, and I think, well, I hope you will agree, it turned into rather a nice painting. And in the background you've got this train line, which I also thought was very interesting feature. So that's all. Those three are just local places. So where you live, there might be quite a few interesting things to paint. You don't need to get in the car straight away to find good places to paint, and you don't have to go outside if you're a little shy. You can just take a photograph. I mean, you don't have to paint outside. You can just take a photograph and then paint at home in the studio, which is what I often do. So the second thing, the second place to paint is the city. So I live very near the city centre, and I love to paint the city because I just find like city buildings and signs and roads and cars all very interesting, and to be honest, easier to paint than countryside scenes, in my opinion, and often look better and more interesting. So I often get on my bicycle and cycle around the city centre and look for places to paint. So that's something I recommend, and I've done lots of paintings of my local city centre. So I strongly recommend you go into your city centre, and if you're too shy to paint outdoors, then take a photograph, or take a photograph and do a sketch. So that could be a good idea. But it's really, city centres are very exciting places, and often lots of interesting things you can paint. And I hope some of the paintings you're seeing now will inspire you to go out and paint scenes of your local city centre. Okay, number 3, bicycle adventures, bicycle painting adventures. So I guess it depends where you live, but I live near a river which has a bicycle path, and that has been so useful, because if I go one way, it's about half a kilometre to the sea. Okay, I shouldn't say that yet, because we're not doing the sea painting yet. So if you go one way, you can go into the countryside. So that takes about maybe 3 or 4 kilometers, or maybe even 5. But slowly it becomes really, really beautiful Japanese countryside. And I've cycled really, really deep into the Japanese countryside and painted some really, really beautiful scenes, and I've had some really great adventures. So I'm not sure if you'll have that situation. It's really helpful if you do, but of course once you get on the bicycle you can soon travel quite far, and you can see places maybe that you can't see from the road, and it's easier to stop and get off your bike and do a quick sketch or take a photograph. Okay, so yes, going the other way on this bicycle path by the river. Oh, and also, as you'll see from the painting, often when I've travelled along this river, there's been beautiful paintings I've done of the river, and also I've seen many beautiful sunsets. So it's really good if you can cycle by a river or travel or walk near a river when you look for scenes to paint. So I recommend rivers as well. And when I cycled the other way by the river to the sea, then I'm very lucky, because where I live, it takes about it takes about 10 or 15 minutes to get to the sea by bike, probably. I'm not sure, roughly. But anyway, when I say the sea, what it is like a bay. It's called Beppu Bay, and it's a really big, beautiful bay. And on the other side, you've got a town called Beppu. And as the sun sets, all the lights come on, and it's beautiful. And behind the town, there's 3 or 4 really big mountains. They're really, really beautiful. And the sun sets behind those mountains. So I've done many, many paintings of that scene, and most of them have ended up in the bin. But I've seen so many beautiful sunsets. It's been a wonderful place. So if you can, then going somewhere where there's a beautiful sunset, cycling to some place where there's a beautiful sunset is a really good idea. It will so inspire you. And hopefully I can show you a few paintings of some of the sunsets I've painted. But to be honest, I still haven't painted one that really does credit, that really captures just how beautiful those sunsets are that I have seen there. They really are amazing, and the atmosphere is so, so wonderful. So that's another thing, getting on your bicycle. Okay, the 4th one is family trips. So I've found many wonderful places from family trips, and the most, what do I say? The most wonderful place I went to on a family trip was in Nagasaki Prefecture, and it was called Sasebo. And in Sasebo they've got over 200 islands, and these islands are beautiful. they just have a beautiful shape, a very unusual, very strange shape. So sometimes they can be like have a long flat horizontal bit, and then a bit of rock coming up, and then on top of the rock some fir trees. It's really, really exotic and really, really amazing, and I've never seen anything like that in England, but maybe on the west coast of America maybe they have, and in Japan they have. Also, this area was where they filmed The Last Samurai, some of it, a few scenes. It's really quintessential Japan. It's really, it really is, it just feels like this is Japan. So I loved that place, and although I went there just one day, I must have painted over 100 paintings of that place. I have maybe just 30 because the other 70 I've thrown away because not good enough, but I've kept about 30, and maybe 20 of them are really, really good. But that place was amazing. So family trips are a big yes. On your family trips, you know, do look out for beautiful scenes to paint. So yeah, Sasebo, wonderful place. So, and I've no doubt that you'll go on a family trip somewhere and come across a really beautiful scene, beautiful building, beautiful river, something like that. So take a photo, do a quick sketch, and then at home do a painting, right? So take advantage of that. Okay, and then number 5. Now this is the weak one. Internet searching or asking people. So I've not found anything on the internet yet, maybe, I think, that I've actually gone to, but maybe in the future. There are some places I found, but they're too far away, so there hasn't been any place that I've seen locally. Maybe there's been places I've seen a photograph of, and then I've asked my wife, can we go there, and she's taken us, but I can't remember having done a painting, so sorry about that. I really fall down on that one. And asking people, I have asked people, but maybe they told me about a place called Yabake, which is beautiful in autumn time, but to be honest, I went there on a family trip before anybody told me about that, so I can't really use that one, but maybe I'll just show it to you if I can find it, because you might like it. If I can find it. If I can't, apologies. Okay, but maybe you will do better than me on that. And then number 6 is driving around in the car. So that is probably the best way, because you can go to remote places where you'll feel a little bit more not so self-conscious, right? And it's easier to paint outside. So painting you're going to see now is of a shrine, and it's at the top of a hill, and you can just see the gate before the trees, so it's beautiful. And this was right next to a road, and I found this place just by chance. I was just driving past on the way to another place, and I've seen this scene many times, and every time I thought, that would be good to paint, that would be good to paint. And maybe once or twice, definitely, I took a photo, and then I don't know when it was, but at some point in the studio I saw the photo and did a quick painting, and that's what you're going to see now. So it's not perfect, that painting, it's more a sketch, but I still like it, and I have to develop that at some point in the future. So it's really good to, when you're driving, to be looking out for these nice scenes and take a photo, and then at home at some point do a painting. So the next thing is, when you go traveling, you can just go traveling and anywhere, just travel off into the blue yonder. That can be fine, and I've done that. and just keep your eyes open. So one time I saw this sign for a waterfall and I just decided to investigate, and it was unbelievable. It was a very small sign, and the actual area was cordoned off, but I'd come all that way, so I just decided to have a look, and it was amazing. This was the first time I'd seen stones carved into like the living rock. You know, J.R.R. Tolkien, who talked about steps carved into living rock. I'd never really seen that, I think, before, but this time I saw it, and it took a long time to get to the waterfall, but the place was amazing. I'm showing you a painting, but it's a terrible painting. I really have to try and do another one of that place. It's an amazing place. I wanted to actually get light and shadow in that area, but I think it's so narrow the sun never enters, because I went another time and I waited a long time for the sunlight to enter to give me these beautiful light and shadow effect, but it stayed in the shade all day, so I was very disappointed about that, but it's still a beautiful place. The next thing is I'm going to show you some Japanese haystacks. So the point of this is I was going to a place called Yufun, which is a tourist town, to do some painting there, and maybe about 6 or 7 times I tried to go there, and every time on the way there I would stop in this place called Shonai, because I would see a beautiful scene and I would want to paint it. So I think that's an important tip. If you're going somewhere to do a painting but you see an interesting scene on the way there, I do recommend you stop and paint it. You know, it's really good to be opportunist. If you see something good, then stop and paint it. And so these Japanese haystacks, that's one of those scenes that I saw, and I didn't intend to paint them, but they look so beautiful that I just got out and painted them. And now half of that field is covered with solar panels. Yeah, it looks terrible. They've covered so many green areas with solar panels here. It's like a craze, you know. It's a craze, and yeah. But enough about that. But they were so beautiful, and I was really happy to see them. So the next thing is, so as you're traveling along, always be looking around for things to paint, but be careful. Sometimes I've driven in a slightly erratic manner because I've been looking for wonderful places to paint. So it's very important when driving to try to look at what's in front of you and not too much to the side or the back. And I know that sounds very obvious, and maybe you've got more common sense than me, but if you get really serious about outdoor painting, you can sometimes get a bit too keen, and sometimes you're looking all over the place for that perfect scene. So just be a bit careful about that and don't get too crazy. So the next picture you're going to see is a river, and when I saw this river at evening time, I was gobsmacked. I was in awe. I thought, this is amazing, and I was trying to I was looking too long at that scene, and then I was trying to stop the car and there was no place to stop. And what you've got to do is calm down, relax, and if there's no place to stop, then when you safely can do it, turn around, come back, and then stop in a convenient place. And that's what I did, and then I took a photograph. And after many attempts in the studio, I eventually managed to do a fairly good painting. And that was such a beautiful scene, yeah? Beautiful scene. But you have to really calm down, which is difficult for me sometimes, and then look carefully for a good place to stop, and so you don't have an accident and you don't annoy people. And then finally, when you're driving, do look out for the unconventional. If something looks exciting, visually exciting, take a photograph. So the next painting I'm going to show you is a tunnel, but for some reason tunnels look beautiful. We have lots of tunnels in Japan. In fact, in my prefecture, Oita, I think this prefecture has more tunnels than any other prefecture. And I never thought painting tunnels would be something I would do. But I just noticed when it rains, these tunnels become beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And one time when I was in a place called Kunisaki, I was going through the tunnel and it had been raining, and they were doing some work on the tunnels because there had been an earthquake, and they were hitting the tunnel roof to check that it wasn't going to fall down. Yeah, they literally do that. They just get a hammer and hit it. It looked like that's what they were doing. And anyway, I took a photograph of that, and driving very slowly, taking a photograph. I don't recommend, but it did lead to a beautiful painting. And so the point there is, do look out for the unconventional and develop that artist's eye, which I talked about before. So don't be stuck in only these kind of scenes are beautiful, like only natural scenes, only, you know, don't think that concrete can't look beautiful, because in the right conditions, maybe many things can look super beautiful, and sometimes it can lead to quite an unusual and interesting and quite novel painting. So I seriously recommend be open for that. And it's really fun when you find something like that and you do a painting and it works, and it works, it's successful. So there you go. Those are the six points. So this is what I should have said at the beginning. And just to recap, so where to paint outdoors: 1, locally, your area. Number 2, the city, walking around the city or cycling. Number 3, getting on your bicycle and cycling around, getting to rivers or seaside places if you can. Number 4, family trips. Take advantage of those family trips. Number 5, my weak point, doing internet searches and asking people. So, and then number 6, driving around. So sometimes you might plan where you're going to, which is great, and sometimes you're just driving off into the blue yonder and being opportunist, and you always want to be looking out for anything that's visually interesting. So there you go. I hope this was useful, and that's all for today. Thank you. Bye for now.